allow yourself to choose something different. You can choose to let go. You can choose a new life. You can choose to change and show up differently. You can choose peace. You can choose harmony. You can choose connection. You can choose love.
You are listening to Turn Your Soul On Radio. I am your host and visionary doctor, Dr. Brandy Victory, and my mission is to assist high-achieving women in closing the gap between feeling unfulfilled to living a life on fire. It is time, ladies, to champion our own lives and turn ourselves on. This is Living Victoriously, ladies. This is how you turn your soul on.
Hello, magnificent beings. I am so grateful to be with you here today. Thank you so much for your patience and understanding as I've been away. I was dealing with the flu and it was a booger. Oh my God, it got me down. And I don't really get down with colds. Maybe I get a stuffy nose or something, but this one took me out of my game completely. So to be feeling inspired and coming back online and able to be here and have a voice to speak to you with, I'm just so grateful. So anyway, you'll probably hear a little nasally. I think the last time I did a podcast, it was as that flu was coming on. I remember speaking to my nasaliness, and here we are again. So bear with me if you hear that. That's just me overcoming this crap. All right. So today I'm just bringing forth some really cool stuff that I had come through as I was working with patients recently, and I had this new patient come in, and she's just this awesome chick, and she came in strictly for chiropractic care. And anytime someone comes in for any kind of care, I give them a consultation and let them know, that my work is really, I'm happy to adjust people all day long. I can do that. And the work that I do is way bigger than adjusting bodies. So, a physical expression of a problem may be rooted in the emotions. It may be rooted in our diet. It may be rooted in a belief system. So, I let her know that there was this opportunity to work on her emotional body and her spirit, to do some spiritual work. And she quickly shook her head no. She's like, oh, no, not right now, not right now. And she proceeded to say, I don't have time to think of myself today. And it really just caught me off guard. I was like, wow. Okay. What she's really saying is that I have this deep belief that if I start down that journey, I may lose complete control and won't be able to function and take care of my family and take care of the business and take care of my husband and volunteer tonight. And, it's that feeling of needing to keep it all together. And if anything gets in the way of that, you'll just completely break. I could feel that from her. And, the essence of that experience was that she was pushing away the emotional piece. And that's the part of herself that is her true guidance. So we tend to suppress and push aside and pretend these feelings that we're having and these emotions that we're having and these beliefs and thoughts and experiences that we're having on our interior are not worth listening to, or we would listen to them and let them guide us along. So I had a teacher when I first started down this path, and she coined the term internal guidance system, the internal guidance system. And in our internal guidance system is that part of ourself that speaks to us so deeply, and it's integrated into our being. And it's that sometimes quiet part of ourself and sometimes loud part of ourself. But it's that part of ourself that's so easy to dismiss because we are so indoctrinated and trained to show up in life in a certain way that if we didn't just dismiss this inner guidance system, then we would have to change our lives to some degree, and change is freaking scary. So we tend to just push it aside and keep going and do our best to raise the kids and run the business and take care of the family and cook the dinner and pay the taxes, and disregard that really, really, in my opinion, that really, really, really important part of ourself. And then on the other hand, I had another lady come in. I've been working with her for probably a year now, and it's just been so fabulous to watch her growth. She comes in now wanting to work on the emotional piece, and at first she did not. Actually, she was like, no, just work on. I did some muscular joint mobility work with her. And she's like, no, I don't really want to touch on that. And I would ask each time. And finally, she started doing it. Now she comes in. She's like, okay, let's just work on this, because what happens, and she's telling me this, she's like, what happens is I get triggered and then I suppress it. And then I become a ticking time bomb, and then suddenly at the smallest little thing I'll just blow up at my boyfriend, project all of my pain onto him, and cause a rift in our relationship, and then get into this cycle of sadness, grief, shame. And then that's probably, honestly, those feelings are probably the root of why she was having these feelings that she felt she needed to suppress. So, but to have her come in and go, no, let's address this. I get how powerful this is. I get how important this is to really look at the emotional piece and the energetics around why I'm showing up in the world the way I am, and having the understanding. Of course, I've been working with her for a year, but having an understanding of, wow, when I address this stuff, then things change. I change, my attitude change, how I show up change, my work. She's has her own business. She's an artist. Her work changes. She's more committed. Her relationships change. She feels better in her body. The pain in her body goes away. I mean, it's just beautiful to watch these women awaken to their power. And what I want you to know is that you are not broken. You are not broken. And if you suppress your emotions and ignore the triggers and pretend it's all okay, you too will end up like these ladies and lose your crap at just the stupidest little things and be caught in your repeating pattern. These emotions that we have, when we have like strong emotions, they create chemicals in our brain. And these chemicals happen to be very addictive. And so what happens is we get addicted to the dysfunction. We're addicted to the outbursts or the diminishing ourselves business, because those chemicals, our brain just wants more of those chemicals. So we set ourselves up to create opportunities to get a hit of these addictive chemicals by bringing on another outburst or being caught up in a vicious loop or suppressing our emotions again and always being on the brink of crying. All the while compounding feelings of guilt and shame and whatever else comes up and saying, oh, I don't really want to have this experience, but you really do. You really do. Or you'd be willing to look at the emotional piece and work through it so that you can actually break the pattern. So the new patient that I was speaking of earlier, she was, as she was leaving, she's just going on about how her kids have ADHD, how they don't get along very well sometimes when they're in these mental mindset spaces. There's problems at home, and I'm loving working with kids because kids respond so quickly to my work. They don't have the baggage that we have, and they don't have the disbelief in the magic of life. And when we don't have disbelief in the magic of life, we believe in the magic of life, then things can be magical and they can change so rapidly. And that's exactly what I see happen to kids. But what we have to understand is that the kids aren't the problem. The kids are a reflection of what's happening in the home, what's happening in the family unit. So if there's static in the household, we have to not only address what's happening in the kids. Yeah, the kids may need help because they're not doing good in school and they're getting in fights and, they have symptoms of ADHD, which is way overdiagnosed in my opinion, but that's a conversation for another day. I see this stuff just just shift so fast when we get down to the root cause, and the root cause is not a lack of medication. And a lot of times, sometimes boys are just freaking hyper, okay? And sometimes people don't like that because we have lives to live, and hyper boys or hyper kids get in the way of that. But there's ways to navigate the hyperactivity and to balance the nervous system and remove the subconscious emotional interference that keeps that pattern going, so that the kids can relax into their own flow in life. So not only when I'm working with kids, not only do I treat kids, but I also highly encourage the parents to get treated too, because when everybody is balanced, then everybody's balanced. It's just a cool little thing. I had, when I was in California, I had this mom and daughter duo that would come see me about once a week. And it would typically be on that day when they're just at each other's throats. Like, teenagers can be hard. And so mom would say, they would just get into this fight, literally yelling and screaming, and they would both go, let's go see Dr. Brandy. And the next thing I know, I've got a call, and they're on the books, and they're in my office, and they're not talking to each other, and I get them on the table, and I treat them both, and they're just like, and they're seriously like that, like so lovey-dovey after that's all said and done. And it's like a switch gets flipped, or a light switch gets flipped in the consciousness. And it's so cool to watch. You just have to understand that the family unit is a unit, and what's happening in one part is also happening in the rest. So we have to really look at that, I have some other friends, and they have a big family, and it's a vibrant family. Like, they're loud, and they're always doing stuff, and they're very energetic people. And one of the things that is common when I'm in their presence is that the parents are wanting to have adult conversations, but the kids are there. And one of the things I commonly hear is, "Hey, don't interrupt me! Don't interrupt me! Don't interrupt me!" And it's fascinating because even though I hear that, I also see that the parents are interruptive. So they'll interrupt their children when their children are talking, but they'll sit there and say, "Don't interrupt me." And it's just a fascinating thing. It's in a completely unconscious pattern. And of course, they haven't asked me for my opinion, so I haven't said anything, at least at this point. But it can't be really fun for the family to be going on in this manner, but they try to just laugh it off and they just kind of live it out, and pretend that it's all okay. And in their minds, it is, because it is an unconscious pattern. They don't even realize anything is going on, but it's not, because then if it weren't a problem. And this isn't the only problem. I mean, there's other things. I'm just giving you a tiny little glimpse into this life of this family. But the parents have to drink every day and smoke pot all day long. And, if you're having to drink and smoke pot to just deal, there's a problem. There's a problem. And it doesn't have to be that way. You just have to wake up to it, and you have to allow yourself to choose something different. You can choose to let go. You can choose a new life. You can choose to change and show up differently. You can choose peace. You can choose harmony. You can choose connection. You can choose love, not anger and meanness and fighting and disconnection. How do we even get to that place is so beyond me. And I'll tell you, when I was married, I was married before, and just dearly love my ex-husband. I still do. He's an amazing person, and he'll always be a rich part of my life because we basically grew up together. But I absolutely know that the primary reason, like my true deepest feeling, is the primary reason why we didn't make it is because my communication skills were not good. Okay. And it goes both ways for sure. But if I had been a better communicator, but what does it take to be a better communicator? It takes understanding ourselves. It takes getting real with ourselves. It takes knowing what we want. And it takes standing up for ourselves. So, being a good little Southern girl from Texas, we weren't taught. We're just not taught. It's not culture to stand up for yourself. It's not culture to own your own space. It's not culture to be in your power. I can remember towards the end of our relationship, and we were together 14 years, so this was not any short-term thing. Towards the end of that, like in the last year or 2 years prior to our divorce, we had this extra bedroom, and I wanted to, and it was kind of like a storage room, and I wanted to make it into a bedroom. And so I decorated it, and I got a new bedspread and little tables and lamps and painted it. And it was just the cutest little space. And it was kind of like my little sanctuary. Once I put all that energy into it, I was just like, oh yeah. And he didn't really like that so much. He couldn't understand why I needed my own space. And honestly, I didn't understand why I needed my own space. I just felt like I needed my own space. But that's part of the culture, that it's not okay to have your own space. It's not okay to own your body. I have these patients that come in when I work for another doctor. They're chiropractic patients, and they're a couple. And they're from Alabama, so it's really kind of similar energy, the Southern hospitality energy. And I haven't seen them in a while, and it was fascinating because they got on the table yesterday. I did the wife first. I treated her first, and she gets on the table. I'm like, so how's your body? She's like, oh, okay, I guess. And I'm like, okay, so is there anything you want to focus on today? Oh, I don't know. Maybe my neck and my jaw. And, okay, let's do that. So I get her on the table and I treat her, and I get her neck adjusted, I get her jaw adjusted, everything. And then she gets up, and I'm like, oh, is that better? And she's like, oh, I guess. And it's just this interesting thing that is so prolific in the South, of where it's not okay to speak your truth. It's not okay to, so from their perspective, it's everything is okay, smiley face. Everything is okay, smiley face. And there's no digging around underneath the surface to see if it really is. So so I know this pattern really well. And so I was raised that way. And so here I am like, yeah, everything's okay, smiley face. But underneath there's this simmer that's happening, and I had absolutely no awareness of it. And that simmer caused me to leave my marriage because it finally blew up. Just like the patient that I was telling you earlier, she understands that if she's not getting cleared on this subconscious emotional turmoil, or these belief systems that cause her to think that she's not good enough, or she's not loved, or she's all alone in the world. Like, those are driving forces through her life and other women's lives that I work for. And you have to get that stuff cleared out. Those are false beliefs. Those are false identifications, and you have the choice to not do that. So, meditation is a really great way to start letting those things go. So one of the things you can do is, and meditation doesn't have to be that big of a deal. You can just call it quiet time if you want, if meditation is a big word for you. It doesn't matter what you call it. Just take some time out each day and sit down and feel into, how do I feel? Take some deep breaths. Let your belly fill up. Let yourself root down into the earth, into your body. Get out of your head. Get into your belly. Get into your internal guidance system. And let yourself hear the guidance. What is it that I'm feeling? What is it that I'm really feeling? Is that important? Why is that important? Is there something I should know? Is there something I should do? Is there a graceful way for me to speak up for myself? Is there a graceful way for me to address this? And just keep asking. Just keep asking, and you'll get your answers. If you need help with this kind of stuff, I'm here for you, and know that you have the power. And sometimes the answers that come may be really uncomfortable. And let that be okay. Change is so uncomfortable. Change is so freaking uncomfortable. Right now I got sick and I started eating a bunch of carbohydrates. I think I even spoke to that on the last podcast. And one day leads to the next, and I've just been eating carbohydrates and processed foods. Like, okay, yeah, it's all been non-GMO and organic. And I had cereal 3 days in a row, and I had a cookie, and later I had pizza, and later I had gelato, and I mean the storyline just started going on and on and on, and I was like, okay, there's got to be a stop to this. So I could tell that some addictive patterns were starting to arise in my consciousness, because when I was younger and in the throes of bipolar manic depression, I had obsessive compulsive disorder with food. I had food addiction, and it didn't matter what kind of food it was. I would just eat, and then I couldn't stop eating. Like I might eat pizza, and later I might have ice cream, and later I might have something else, and it just would not stop. And it was a very, very horrible place to live, and to feel like you have no control in your life is just not a fun place to be. I so get it. And so what I know now is that I do have control in my life. So I had a moment where I was eating foods that were easy and fun, and that was a choice I made. And I've learned to not have real big attachment to it. In the past, I would have been beating myself up, slandering myself with very horrific self-hatred, self-talk. Calling myself all kinds of things, and feeling really worthless and like a failure. So I don't go into those patterns anymore. And there's a reason why. It's because I've been doing this work since I was 19 years old. My gosh, I've got 27 years on myself of all this kind of stuff. But, that's one of the things that I started is meditation and yoga and breath work. And of course, I was being treated by a practitioner who was doing the work that I do now. It's how I came to do this. But help is out there, and you don't have to feel stuck. And if you do feel stuck, reach out, and also know that you have the power to create change in your life. You can change yourself, you can change your energetics, and you can begin to experience life differently. All right, ladies, I'm going to leave it at that. Before I go, I do want to let you know that the Ignite workshop that we were going to have in January got snowed out. We've reset it for March. So I'm very excited for a springtime workshop, and I just want to put that in your space. If you think you might want to come join in and do some of this processing together, we'll have a sound healing. You'll get hands-on work. You'll have group work. I'm so excited for the experience. Also, I want to just touch base with you. I know I kind of got you all excited about the interviews that were coming, and they still are, but with the weather up here, I've literally scheduled 3 different interviews, and they all got snowed out. So I'm gonna see if I can change my technology to be able to go on location with people and do podcasting interviews where they're at, and that will make things free up a little bit. Otherwise, we're just going to be waiting a few more weeks till the snow decides to let up a bit and people can actually get to my place. Okay. Also, lastly, I'll be in Northern California. I'll be in the Santa Rosa, Sebastopol area, also in March, probably towards the end of March. And I just want to let you know that. So if you're in that area and you want to have some hands-on in-person work, I know I've got a lot of long-distance patients that are in California. So I'm just letting you know I'm going to be in town. So reach out to me and get on my schedule so I can get you booked. And we'll see you then. Otherwise, have a beautiful, beautiful day and week and month and new year. And gosh, I think we're coming up on a new moon pretty soon. So maybe we can speak to that on Friday. All right, ladies. Mwah, love you all. Thank you for tuning in to another awesome episode of Turn Your Soul On Radio. If you're enjoying the show and it's making a difference in your life, I'd be super grateful if you'd head on over to iTunes and leave a heartfelt review, which tremendously helps the growth of the show. Feel free to leave any suggestions or questions in your review, or you can shoot us an email at admin@drbrandyvictory.com. I also would like to invite you to become a deeper part of the Turn Your Soul On Radio community, which you can do by joining our private Facebook group, Turn Your Soul On. I'll leave a link in the show notes for you. Thank you so much for being here today, and I'll talk to you next time. Have a fantastic day.
This podcast is for information purposes only. Dr. Brandy Victory is not a medical doctor, and the views and statements expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Dr. Brandy Victory and the producers, disclaim responsibility from any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.